Hello, in this video we're going to be talking about neurons, so let's not waste any of your time. Let's get right to it. Now when we're talking neurons, we want to make sure that we understand the different parts and components, so we're going to talk about those over the next few slides, and then we're going to get into the different types of neurons. We saw last time that there were, as far as pathways, there were different types, but within those pathways, based on the situation, maybe there are different kinds or types of neurons that you'll see those. But starting with the kind of the very top, the soma. Soma, as you can see, is the control center, which is makes it equivalent to like a nucleus in a somatic cell, and that's that egg shaped looking thing. Nucleus is inside of that. I said not the egg thing. The egg thing is the nucleus. The soma is the area above that. It's that kind of that whole body area with the nucleus kind of in the middle, little eyeball looking at you, but that shape around before they get to the branches, which is the dendrites. That's your soma. That's an important area. That's where the action potential is going to happen. The bottom half of that is the trigger zone. That's when it's going to send it on down into the axon. Soma is a pretty important place. Again, like it says, there's the control center, and you can see other information about that. The next thing to consider when we're talking neurons is the dendrites. Okay, super important part of that, and it's such a important part of just knowledge and learning and memories and everything. The interesting thing, and when we look at a brain, this will just come across. I know the first time way back when you dissect a brain, it's just odd, because you know what all the brain can do, but then when you look inside of it, you're thinking, well where is this happening? And you can't see it. It's not like when you open up a computer, if you've ever done that. I get all the parts, the wires, and the various things, but you dissect the brain, you just can't see all this that's going on. But the dendrites super important as aspect of learning, and when we get into the brain itself, we'll talk about that process. But as you learn, you develop more dendrites, and the more you learn, the more dendrites you have, and the more dendrites you have, the more you can learn. So it's just a very connected aspect. But this is the dendrites is the part that receives the signal from a previous neuron, and then sends that into the soma, and then down the axon to the next neuron. Alright, as far as your axon, that's that long cord, which in the diagram to the left is below the soma and the nucleus, that long rod, and of course you can see the little bluish white things wrapped around that. That's myelin, that we'll talk about. It's got its own video, but this is the portion of the neuron that the signal sends down. You can see the red arrow showing you the direction, and then once it gets down to the end, you've got your synaptic section, and that's what sends it to the next neuron. But that's your axon. Alright, as I mentioned earlier, these are the four main types of neurons, and depending on what the situation is, depends on which one it needs. But you can see the multipolar neuron. The polar refers to the fact that the soma is in the middle, and so there's two poles, there's two ends, and so you got your multi, your bi, and your uni, and the prefix refers to how many dendrites there are. Multi refers to many, many, many dendrites. Your bipolar, now you just got one set on each end, and you can see the locations of where these are at. And then the unipolar, okay, now you just got the soma is more towards one end. And in your axionic neurons, no axon, no axon, just the soma and then a bunch of dendrites. Now, one thing you want to remember is that these are cells, and so as cells, they need resources. So what we're going to look at on this slide is the movement of those resources. So axonal transport is just a reference to that resources or materials are transported along the axon for whatever the cell might need, making its way to the soma and to the nucleus and then out. So like if it makes proteins or it makes something that the neuron needs in a certain area, then it moves up and down that axon. Anterograde is movement down the axon away from the soma. Retrograde is moving towards the soma. So just like with afferent and efferent, sympathetic and parasympathetic, you just have to memorize what we're talking about. But anterograde, that moves away from the soma. Retrograde returns to the soma, and you can see the various things, but just whatever the resources are needed, they just move up and down, whether it's a particular element or a particular molecule, whatever it may be. So that's our video over neurons. When we come out together next time, we're going to be talking about the neuroglial cells. We'll see you then.